When people think of Texas, they think of strength, wide skies, dusty roads that never seem to end, men who shake hands firmly and don't explain themselves twice, law that feels personal, not written, order that comes from knowing who runs the town. I grew up in that kind of Texas. Our town sat between long highways and open land, where the sun burned everything the same color by August. The air smelled like hot asphalt, gasoline, leather seats, and dry grass. Cicadas screamed all summer, and at night you could hear pickup trucks long before you saw them. Nothing moved fast, but everything felt heavy, like the place itself was watching you. My father was the sheriff. That meant doors opened. Conversations stopped when he walked into a room. People nodded before he spoke. In our town, the badge wasn't just metal. It was authority, it was protection, and it was fear, whether people admitted it or not. At home, he was quiet, controlled. The kind of man who didn't raise his voice because he didn't need to. He wore his uniform like a second skin, and even out of it, he carried the same posture. Straight back, calm eyes, no wasted movement. As a kid, I thought that was what safety looked like. I was 16 when everything changed. But the truth is, the story started long before that. It started with my idea of what a man was supposed to be. I was obsessed with Chuck Norris, not in a cute way, in a serious way. His movies were always on TV. Lone wolf, strong, quiet. The kind of man who didn't beg, didn't explain, didn't lose. He protected the weak. He punished the bad guys. He always knew what to do. To me, Chuck Norris wasn't just an actor. He was a blueprint. I grew up believing real men were supposed to be tough, decisive, a little scary. That love looked like control. That protection meant dominance. No one ever sat me down and said that wasn't true. In Texas, no one questioned those ideas. They were just there, baked into the air. The boys at school were already trying to be men. Boots, belts with heavy buckles, pickup trucks passed down from fathers and uncles. Old Ford F-150s, Chevy Silverados. Faded paint, cracked dashboards, engines that growled like animals when you turned the key. Everyone wanted a truck. He had one too, a big one. Dark paint, lifted just enough to feel intimidating, tires thick with dust. The kind of pickup that made you feel small when you stood next to it. When he pulled up, people noticed. When he shut the door, it sounded final. He was older, confident, known. People treated him with respect, the same way they treated my father. That mattered to me more than I understood at the time. At first, he was kind, protective. He talked about responsibility, about how hard life was, about how girls needed someone strong in a world like this. He said I was mature, that I understood things other girls didn't, that Texas chewed up the weak, and he could keep me safe. I believed him. When we started living together, it felt like stepping into an adult world overnight. One moment I was a kid in my childhood room, and the next I was cooking dinners, folding clothes, trying to be someone's woman. That's how it was framed. That's how I framed it to myself. The town didn't question it. People don't ask many questions in small Texas towns, especially when the right last names are involved. Especially when authority sits at your dinner table. The first time he hit me, it didn't look like violence in the movies. No dramatic scene, no screaming, just a sudden moment where his hand moved faster than my brain could catch up. The room went quiet afterward. He said I made him angry, said he didn't mean it, said stress does things to a man. I remembered Chuck Norris. I remembered all the movies where men were rough because the world was rough. I told myself this was normal, that I just had to be better. When I got pregnant at 16, fear didn't even register right away. I felt numb, like something inevitable had finally happened. In my mind, this was adulthood completing itself. This was what women did. This was life. But life with him became smaller. Walls closed in, words turned sharp. His control grew tighter, quieter. When I tried to leave the first time, I didn't get far. He found me. He always found me. He dragged me back, not caring who saw, not caring what it looked like. In a town like ours, no one intervened anyway. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I could trust. And I didn't know that the man everyone feared was hiding something far bigger than me. That truth would come later. For now, all I knew was that Texas felt endless, and I felt trapped inside it. By the time my belly started to show, the town already knew. Not officially, no announcements, no questions asked out loud. But people noticed everything in a place like ours. They always did. They just chose silence when silence was safer. Texas towns run on unspoken rules. You don't interfere in family matters. You don't challenge authority. And you definitely don't accuse a man who knows everyone's secrets. Life with him turned into something small and exhausting. Days blurred together. The house felt tighter every week, like the walls were inching closer. He decided who I spoke to, where I went, how long I stayed. If I was late, there were questions. If I answered wrong, there were consequences. The violence wasn't constant. That was the worst part. Sometimes he was calm, almost gentle. He'd bring home food, talk about work, sit in his big pickup outside the house with the engine running, radio low, as if everything was normal. Those moments confused me more than the bruises. They made me doubt myself, made me wonder if I was exaggerating, if maybe I was the problem. Then something small would set him off. A look, a comment, a wrong tone. The hits came fast, efficient, like he'd done it before. He never lost control completely. He always stopped before it left obvious marks. He knew where to aim. He knew the line. I learned how to cover things up. Long sleeves in Texas heat. Sunglasses even when it was cloudy. Smiling when people asked how I was doing. Saying just tired when they looked too closely. No one pushed. At night, I lay awake listening to trucks pass on the highway. Tires humming against asphalt. Radios crackling with country music and late-night talk shows. I imagined getting into one of those trucks and never stopping, just driving until the land changed, until the sky felt different. But I had no money, no plan, and now, a child. The first time I ran, I left at dawn. I packed a small bag, nothing dramatic, just clothes and a few things that mattered. I walked instead of driving, afraid the sound of the engine would wake him. I didn't even make it out of town. He found me before noon. He didn't yell. That would have drawn attention. He grabbed my arm, hard enough that I felt something tear inside, and told me to get in the truck. People watched. No one moved. No one said a word. In Texas, that kind of scene is explained away quickly. Couple having trouble. Family business? Not our place. Back at the house, he locked the doors. After that, he watched me closely, like property, like something that might run again. He told me I was ungrateful, that I didn't understand how lucky I was, that without him, I'd be nothing, a pregnant teenage girl with no future. Part of me believed him. The baby kicked more often as the months went on. Sometimes I'd sit on the edge of the bed, hands on my stomach, whispering apologies to someone who hadn't even been born yet. I promised I'd figure something out. I just didn't know how. What I didn't know then was that his power didn't come from strength alone. It came from fear. He wasn't just violent at home, he was dangerous in ways the town didn't want to see. Late nights, strange calls, men who came by when I wasn't supposed to be in the room, cash exchanged without receipts, conversations that stopped the moment I entered, and always the truck. That big pickup was everywhere. On dirt roads, behind bars, outside warehouses near the edge of town. He said it was work, law enforcement cooperation, keeping order. But Texas has a long border, and long borders come with long shadows. The arrest didn't happen suddenly. It started with whispers, then rumors, then unmarked cars parked too long near the sheriff's office. Federal agents who didn't smile. Men who asked questions no one wanted to answer. One night he didn't come home. By morning, the house felt different, too quiet. No boots by the door, no keys on the table, no engine rumbling in the driveway. That afternoon, I heard it from someone else. He had been working with a cartel, moving drugs, protecting shipments, selling safety. The man who beat me, the man who dragged me back by force, the man who claimed to be law and order, gone. When they came for him, they came hard. No respect, no silence, no town rules, just handcuffs and charges and a future that collapsed in front of everyone. For the first time in years, I slept without fear. But freedom didn't feel like joy yet. It felt like shock. Like standing in the open after being locked inside too long. I didn't know how to live without watching every sound, every movement. I gave birth shortly after. Holding my child, I realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. I was still alive, and so was my future. The trial took months. Long enough for the town to change its tone. Long enough for people who once nodded politely to suddenly avoid eye contact. Long enough for stories to be rewritten. No one remembered how respected he had been. No one remembered how afraid they were. Now everyone claimed they had suspected something. That's how it always works. In court, he didn't look at me. Not once. The same man who used to control every step I took now sat in a chair, hands cuffed, listening while strangers read out his crimes. Drug trafficking, cooperation with a cartel, abuse of authority, corruption that had spread quietly for years, hidden behind a badge and a reputation. The sentence was long, long enough to make it permanent. When they led him away, I didn't feel relief the way people expect you to. I didn't feel triumph. I felt empty, like a storm had passed and taken everything with it, good and bad, leaving nothing but silence. I was 17. I had a baby. No money, no plan, no protection. But for the first time, no fear. I left Texas not long after. Not because I hated it, not because I wanted revenge, but because every road, every gas station, every pickup truck sounded like him. Texas was too big to escape memories and too small to disappear inside. Life outside felt unreal at first. No one cared who my father was. No one lowered their voice when I walked into a room. No one expected me to be quiet, obedient, grateful. I learned small freedoms before big ones, choosing my own clothes, locking my own door, sleeping without listening for footsteps. I got a job, then another, nothing glamorous, just honest work, the kind that doesn't make headlines, the kind that builds slowly day by day. I learned how to stretch money, how to ask for help, how to accept kindness without waiting for a price. My child grew. And with every year, I understood something that took me too long to see back then. What I thought was strength was just power. What I thought was protection was control. What I thought was love was fear wearing a familiar face. I stopped romanticizing men who scared me. I stopped confusing silence with safety. The funny thing is, Chuck Norris movies still come on sometimes, late at night. Old reruns, lone men winning fight suits, restoring order with their fists. I watch them now and feel nothing like I did at 16. Because real strength doesn't raise a hand. Real authority doesn't need fear. And real men don't need to break women to feel whole. Texas still exists exactly as it always has. Wide skies, long roads, pickup trucks rumbling past at sunset. Somewhere out there, another girl is growing up believing the same stories I believed. Thinking toughness equals love. Thinking control equals care. I hope she learns faster than I did. As for me, I didn't get a perfect ending. I got something better. A quiet life, a safe home, a child who knows laughter instead of fear, and a past that no longer owns me. The sheriff lost his badge. The town lost its illusion. And I finally learned that survival doesn't look heroic. Sometimes it just looks like waking up one morning and realizing you're free, and that's enough.